Welcome to Politics Unusual. I'm Morgan McKay. The state budget is due in just a few weeks, and state lawmakers are gearing up for a fight over taxes. So joining us first to discuss the budget and more, State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins. After that, we're sitting down with the International President of the Transport Workers Union, John Samuelsen, to discuss transit concerns, and then we're checking in on New Jersey. But first, this week, the State Senate and State Assembly up in Albany passed their one-house budgets. So what does that mean? Well, nothing is final yet, but it does allow for Democrats who hold the majority in each house to outline their priorities, and it marks the start of fierce budget negotiations between legislative leaders and the governor before the budget is due at the end of the month. So joining us now is someone who'll be leading those budget negotiations, State Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins. Welcome back to the show.
It's good to be with you, and thanks for having me.
Of course. And so how budget negotiations work, for those who don't know, is a Senate Majority Leader, the Assembly Speaker, and the Governor all go in a room to hash out budget items. And it used to be called 3 men in a room. But when you took over as Majority Leader at the start of the 2019 legislative cycle, you broke that barrier. And now it's 2 women and 1 man in a room. But what do you think is going to be maybe the hardest part about the budget process this year?
Well, I think all things considered, this is a budget that, unlike some of the previous budgets, are not really loaded up with a lot of policies. A lot of times we enter into a negotiation where questions that are not budget related are somehow front and centered. So I think this one, frankly, everything being equal, is a little less policy heavy, although obviously changes to the secret laws will be something to discuss, and the automobile insurance will be a discussion. But I think pretty much it's focused on the resources that we need to run the state, to make sure that we secure our health care, and we make sure that we secure education and public safety, and we're trying to focus on affordability and obviously the plight of our municipalities, including New York City, as we work to stabilize and try and figure out the path forward for them.
Exactly. This year might be the actual year that it's the big sticking point is the actual budget items. So the Senate passed its one-house budget, and it included a variety of revenue raisers, including proposals to raise taxes. And we're going to dig into the details in just a moment. But why does the Senate feel it's important to raise revenue at a time when you have the governor also saying that there's already money in the budget to fund what's needed without these additional revenue raisers? Why are you guys looking at these?
Well, we're looking at, again, what we have now to contend with. I've got hospitals that many in rural areas, as well as some of our safety net hospitals that really are in need of infusions. I've got municipalities who, because of the rising costs and the unpredictability of the future, frankly, between the tariffs and between the unpredictability, a lot of the poison pills in the legislation that they passed, what they call this one big, what I call ugly bill, which actually will cut our health care funding for education. There's so much that is pending that we just wanted to make sure that we have the resources to keep New York on a strong footing and make sure that we are supplying New Yorkers with the resources they need and what they expect from New York.
Now, digging into some of these details, starting first with a proposal to raise income taxes by 0.5% on residents making $5 million and more a year. How did your team determine that rate and how much to tax?
Well, again, we look at what we anticipate as the needs, and we look at how we can meet them. And we've always, every year, we have looked at a progressive way to tax folks. And we understand that in terms of low and middle class taxes, we've got the lowest taxes in 70 years, but we don't have a really progressive tax. So we have continually asked those who have a little bit more to give a little bit more. We have constantly asked for us to meet the needs that we No, New Yorkers have. Every year we are challenged, quite honestly, with our education costs and with our healthcare costs. And post COVID, we've seen obviously a tremendous dip in what the federal government has been able to support us with, and even more so with this administration. So we are looking at asking those who could do a little more to do that so that we can maintain the quality of life for New Yorkers and really give a break to those people who are struggling. You know, people are struggling with utility costs, they're struggling with cost of food, and certainly we are very, very, you know, focused on making sure we meet the needs of our people.
Now, the Senate's also proposing to hike the corporate tax as well on New York City businesses and financial firms in New York City. Business groups and the governor have been warning that this could make the state less competitive and drive businesses out of the state. You guys have been opposed, saying that this wouldn't force businesses to leave New York, but why should businesses stay here if they can get maybe a better tax deal over in, say, New Jersey?
Well, besides the fact that obviously this is New York, and New York in and of itself is unique and you know, an amazing place to be. But also the reality of working with the new mayor, who has identified an extremely large hole in the economy of New York City. And we cannot discount what New York City means to the state and how its viability really is important to the entire population in our state. So what we did was offer an array of options that would meet the $5 billion deficit that you know, New York City is facing. And in addition, I will say that I've spent a lot of time speaking with the mayor and my staff speaking to their staff, and I'm sure this is the same case with the governor as well as the speaker in terms of what types of belt tightening they are willing to do and planning to do, and, you know, putting forward on their end what the plan is in order to meet the deficit that that they are facing. So we have presented a range of options. You know, again, I'm confident that working together, we will figure out the best path forward. But, you know, options are necessary.
Now, speaking of the mayor, he did get a lot of what he wanted in these one-house budgets. He's, as you mentioned, threatened to raise the city's property taxes if state lawmakers don't raise taxes. And because of that, some critics have accused Democrats in the state legislature of bending to the mayor's will. Did you feel pressured by the mayor to propose these tax increases?
No, I didn't feel pressured by the mayor to propose the tax increases. I mean, again, when we first started having this discussion, he was talking about a $12 billion deficit. This deficit, as they, re-examined has certainly gone down. But again, starting with a deficit of that magnitude is problematic for anyone, and certainly for the city of New York. So it was not pressured when we looked at a list of some of the things that, again, New York State had more responsibility for, that had been shifted to the city. That seemed rational to bring that back into the state's responsibility. Again, the foundation aid and working around foundation aid not only helps the city, but it helps everyone in the state. Aid to municipalities, what we give to municipalities all around the state. New York City wasn't getting it, so we've certainly looked at how we can give more aid to New York City. So it wasn't about pressure. It was about looking at logical options and putting those options forward. We want to get to the right answer sooner or later. The pressure of any municipality, certainly a city as big as New York, not being able to meet its obligations is pressure in and of itself. So that's when we have to put our heads together and figure out what the way forward is.
I know budget negotiations are still just starting, but the governor has said that and the governor has said she's against these tax increases, but you guys haven't even really gotten in the room yet to discuss. Do you think that this is going to cause the budget to be late this year? It's due on April 1st, but do you think this could hold up budget negotiations this year?
No, again, I think we should contextualize that we have always, this is not new, our recommendations in terms of revenue is not new. We generally walk in because, again, we are looking at what the needs of the state are. We are looking at the partnership that has become rather fraught with the federal government, and we are looking at ways to meet the needs of New Yorkers with resources. And again, just like we talked about New York City, New York State has options as well. We put all the options on the table, and then we figure out what the best options are. But I think that all of us, as I say, are focused on the same things. I do want to have an on-time budget because there are so many things legislatively that we want to deal with, but we will get there.
Well, I cannot thank you enough for your time, Majority Leader. I know you and your team are going to be so busy over these next few weeks. Good luck in this process, and thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Morgan. It's been nice to talk to you.
Coming up next, transit concerns, also a major topic of conversation in Albany. Coming up, we'll be joined by the international president of the Transport Workers Union to talk about subway safety and other issues impacting MTA workers. Welcome back to Politics Unusual. The Transport Workers Union is setting its sights on Governor Kathy Hochul after she vetoed a bill last year that would have required one conductor and one train operator on every subway train. So joining us now to talk about the safety concerns around this issue is the international president of the Transport Workers Union, John Samuelsen. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So let's talk about this bill. Now, you guys are releasing a poll today which found that nearly 9 in 10 New York City subway riders, or 87%, want at least 2 crew members on every train. Explain more.
Yeah, absolutely. The poll actually reaffirms what we've known for decades, that New York City transit riders, subway riders feel safer and just feel a lot better overall about a 2-person train crew rather than the robotic operation of the system. It is safer.
Now, Governor Kathy Hochul in her veto last year said 2-person crews are too costly, and a different survey conducted by the Marin Institute found that only 6% of subway cars need 2-person crews. Why do you disagree with this assessment?
I don't even know what the Marin Institute is. Transit riders don't know what the Marin Institute is. It's probably a bunch of out-of-town academics, sort of like these postmodern urbanists that believe they can come to New York and overlay their worldview on the New York City subway system and its riders. So we reject that. It's obviously less safe. A 2-person train crew and particularly the uniformed conductor is an absolute deterrent to crime. There are evacuations in the New York City subway system that absolutely do not occur in other systems throughout the world. People are hit by trains left and right in the New York City subway system. When that happens in between stations, it automatically triggers an evacuation. So think about being in a wheelchair or being blind or being a mother with little children on the train, and you're now stuck in the hole between stations, say underneath Manhattan, underneath the streets of the city. It's a nightmare scenario. Our conductors and our train operators are trained to conduct evacuations. They do it right away. Without the conductor on board, there are self-evacuations. People panic. They wind up on the tracks around live third rails. They march onto the other track into oncoming train traffic. It's disastrous without the conductor.
I was going to say, I was stuck on a train recently, and the conductor came around and unlocked the doors for everyone because the doors were all stuck. What are you guys telling lawmakers, Governor Hochul, about just how necessary for you guys this issue is?
Both houses of the legislature are 100% with us on this. So the bill last year passed overwhelmingly, if not unanimously, both houses of the legislature, the state Senate and the Assembly. Hochul vetoed it. It was a mistake on her part. It was unwise. She doesn't ride the subway system. She's from Buffalo or something like that. She really has not done the will of the people in this case. Legislators, particularly those from the outer boroughs of New York City, fully understand. All of us that grew up riding the train system in New York, the subways, understand the necessity. And by the way, on 4th Avenue and 36th Street a few years ago, a madman got on the train with a Glock. He started shooting people indiscriminately on the train, shooting people in the legs. He threw smoke grenades onto the train. It was a panic situation, and it was a potential death situation if it wasn't for our train crews. Our train crews evacuated panicked riders, and understandably panicked riders, up into the street and onto different trains. Without our two-person train crew, that would have been more mayhem than it already was that day. And it's pretty obvious that Hochul nor Jano Liba, who's a real estate developer, he's not even a transit professional, they don't understand the will of New York City subway riders, the working class people in New York City. We do.
Now, the union has to renegotiate its contract with the MTA, and you said that you expect it to be one of the ugliest contract fights since a strike in 2005. That contract is up in May. Why do you think this is going to be such a contentious union contract negotiations?
Because I believe when Hochul vetoed the bill, in her veto message, she not only mentioned the ridiculous cost of adding conductors to trains that don't have them currently, she spoke about how this is commonplace in systems across the world. Well, systems across the world are not New York City. That they don't have the idiosyncrasies of the New York City subway system. But that was an indicator to me that they're going to come for the conductor and the two-person train crew again. When they come for the conductor, there's going to be a bloody fight back. It's going on in the middle of Kathy Hochul's election campaign. She should recognize that truth and what the consequences of coming after the TWU during her election will be.
I was going to say, if anyone knows you, they know that you don't mince your words. Just how important, what are you going to be doing to really advance your message?
We're organizing transit workers to fight back, to defend our livelihoods in this contract. And the riders of the New York City subway system stand with us. They stand with us. 9 out of 10 stand with us. And those 10% are probably the out-of-town academics that have no idea what working class life is like in New York City.
Well, I know you're going to be on top of it, and thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks.
Coming up next, New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill delivering her first budget address this week. Coming up, we're looking at some of the key issues she plans to address in her record-breaking spending plan. New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill presented her 2027 budget in Trenton this week. She began by touting her actions so far, which included signing 16 executive orders that involve freezing utility rates and boosting energy supplies, as well as responding to 2 snowstorms. Sherrill says the state has a $7 billion surplus and requires a balanced budget, but the expenses are growing. That includes a proposed $7.3 billion contribution to the state's public worker pension system and nearly $6 billion in back payments. Sherrill says her budget reflects her fiscal priorities.
It fully funds the pension. It does not raise taxes on individual New Jerseyans. And it does include $2.6 billion in budget solutions, nearly $2 billion in tough necessary cuts, and over $700 million in new revenue from closing corporate loopholes. Together.
And the budget proposal also includes a record level of K-12 education funding and a major restructuring of school-based mental health services. Coming up next, we're going to test your knowledge of the tri-state region, so stay with us. We're flashing back to this week in history. On March 12, 1888, a storm struck New York and New Jersey and would be later known as the Great Blizzard of 1888. Telephone lines broke from the ice and snow, cutting communications. Elevated trains were frozen in place and roads were blocked from the snow. More than 400 people were killed from the Northeast blizzard. Finally, tonight, we're testing your knowledge. Last week, we asked you, during the Cold War, what served as an active secret missile site to defend New York City? The answer, Fort Tilden in Queens. The fort was first established as a coastal defense site in 1917. Then, during the Cold War, the fort was turned into a secret missile site and equipped with surface-to-air missiles that could carry a warhead and shoot over 96 miles. The fort was decommissioned in 1974. Now, to this week's question. New York City hosted its first St. Patrick's Day parade in what year? Now, don't Google the answer, but if you want to take a shot at it, go ahead, scan that code on your screen. That's going to take you to our website, fox5ny.com, where you can check back here next week to see if you're right. That does it for this episode of Politics Unusual. If you missed any part of the show or just want to check it out again, we're now also on Spotify and any other platform you listen to podcasts on, so be sure to follow us. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Morgan McKay. Have a safe weekend. We'll see you next week.